Let's go over Module 3 and then specifically Unit 3.1. Module 3 is on analytical thinking and writing. So you will be writing an analysis paper. And to help you do that, you will be defining the rhetorical situation. You have a video from Kyle Stedman in Unit 3.1 about the rhetorical situation, and you should take notes on that. He's going to define it really well for you, and he even talks a little bit about how to write an analysis paper. And then in this particular unit, you're going to need to choose something visual to analyze. The sooner you can make that selection, the better for you, because you're going to want as much time as possible to think about that image and maybe do a little bit of research on its context. Okay? So when your brain is analyzing, it is breaking down whatever that thing is that it's analyzing. If you analyze a bicycle, you break it down into its parts. It's got tires, pedals, handlebars. So we break it down into all the parts it contains. We look at all the parts. And what we're trying to do is maybe find a pattern, right? And a bicycle probably isn't the best idea for that, but we're looking for a pattern. When we lay all those pieces out, what do we see pattern-wise, right? And whatever pattern you recognize, that might end up being one of the conclusions that you're able to reach. So in an analysis, we don't just break the thing down and say, well, here's what it is, like a summary. We do have to say something about it that's a little bit more sophisticated. So your steps to the analysis will be to, again, choose what you are going to analyze. It has to be something visual. We'll talk about that more in a moment. You should take a lot of notes because you're going to want to see words on the page. It's really hard to notice patterns if you're trying to do it just from like something that's in your head. So taking notes on paper where you can see them is going to be really, really important for analysis, at least for analysis that's complicated. Not something that's simple, but the images that you're using are complicated. You will look at those notes. You're going to look for patterns. Do you see any patterns? What could your conclusions be? And then look at notes and decide how you will organize. That takes you up to the organization. So then we have some traits of analysis. It's a little bit about what you might do in the actual paper. But it does give you some ideas for conclusions that you might reach. Like really what you're going to be doing in this particular paper is looking at this last point. You're going to say, is the message of the image effective or ineffective? That's basically going to be the main conclusion you're going to reach. You might have other conclusions, but that's going to be your main conclusion. So I have a couple images here just to look at, and I didn't want anybody to think I was being political with one particular bent, so I did try to kind of even out my images. I don't think you have to analyze something that you necessarily believe or don't believe. So don't let that sway you with what you pick. So the image you choose should be something recent. I'm saying the last 5 years, but maybe even the last 3. You're not picking anything that a lot of other people have talked about. I want you to pick something no one has talked about. Okay? So you're picking something recent. You could pick a commercial. Lots of political ads out right now that you could choose unless you're just sick of it all. You could pick a short video. 3 3 minutes or less. We're not talking about movies here. You could write an entire book on a movie. So you're writing a short essay. So whatever you look at has to be small. You could pick an advertisement. Again, it has to be recent. Okay. You could pick a political ad, a political cartoon. I Googled magazine covers political, and I found these. You definitely need to find something artful that has a relatively clear message. In other words, the artist has made choices that create certain effects. Okay? So you're trying to find something that has a message, right? It has to say something. What is the message? Now, it's not going to be likely that you're going to find words that deliver the message. You're going to have to infer a message based on whatever words are there and whatever images you get. And then what you think the message is. Okay, so your choice it matters. Your choice is important here. And it doesn't matter what you personally believe. Pick an image that to you has a very clear message. Because you're not going to argue anything. If you pick something political, you're not arguing anything political. You're merely talking about the message. And is it effective or not? Okay, so your only opinion is whether or not the image is effective. So if I analyze this, I'm not expressing my own opinion about Putin or Trump. I'm merely analyzing what is the message. And by the way, Der Spiegel's magazine covers are always very, well, I don't know if this one is really all that shocking, but they really have a lot of covers that are quite political and quite picking on the U.S. But I'm not going to say anything about my personal opinion. I'm merely going to say, well, here's what I think Der Spiegel is trying to say in this image and on this cover, right? Let's go look at that. So here are some conclusions I might reach. And on the left over here, I have some sample thesis statements. On the right over here is really what it is that you're going to be arguing. Right? So the message, it's either effective, partially effective, or not effective. I've just told you your thesis. You just have to pick which one it is based on your image. Your essay is going to analyze why that is effective or ineffective. And you can draw other conclusions about choices and effects. You should be, right? So these are sample thesis statements. You can pause this and jot one down. This video is always going to be here. You can always go back to it and look at these samples. Okay, so in one I've said that the message is effective, and I've said what I think the message is. I'd want to do more investigation into that. There are some words on the cover, and I'm not totally sure of the translation, so I would need to do a little bit more investigation. Okay, I've got one that says it's somewhat effective, in which case I might talk about the parts of the message that really come across well, and then places where it's maybe a little bit confusing and the message isn't working as well. Okay, and then I've got one that says it's ineffective, in which case my paper would be arguing where it's failing. By the way, that last one is the most difficult to do. It's much easier to say it's effective or somewhat effective. If it's ineffective, it's missing things, and it's hard to talk about what's not there, at least for very long, right? You could write a couple sentences about what's missing, but then what can you say about that? Not much. So you are going to spend some time in this unit practicing. I've got an image for you in the discussion. It's not this image. probably should have put this image in there. Maybe I'll add it. You're going to analyze the effectiveness of an image in this first discussion. And in this unit, you're going to also go ahead in the module to read the essay assignment. You will select an image and you're going to start taking notes. Okay, so again, you want to select that image kind of quickly because you do want to give yourself enough time to be able to analyze the image effectively. If you want to send any images to me to do some brainstorming with you, or to say, hey, this is the image I'm thinking of and here's what I think about it, do you think this will work? I'm more than happy to look at that with you or even meet with you and talk about it. All right, so look for your images and do some practice in the next day or two and start taking notes. Let me know if you have questions.